So introduce yourself and your company for 2-3 minutes. And also, if you can just mention briefly, what is the initial impact of COVID-19 on your local market? If we can start, ladies first, with Clara.
Hey guys, nice to meet you all. So I'm Clara Gold. I'm French originally. You're gonna hear it by the accent. I've been in Rappi for 3.5 years, but it's like dog years in startup. We all know this, so it's like forever. So I'm based in Mexico, but Rappi is a Colombian startup. It's the first super app, in Latin America. We created it 5 years ago. In Colombia, and we're currently operating in 8 countries with around, I would say, like 4 million active users, meaning purchasing at least once a month. From the very beginning, like the business model hasn't evolved. We've always been a multi-vertical platform, meaning we deliver food, groceries, cash. We also have a section called Rappi Favor, meaning you can basically order a favor, like picking up your passport from your home and having it delivered to the airport if you forgot it. So having courier queuing for you, like to collect tickets. So it's basically everything that you want. And the very value proposition is basically to deliver it within 30 minutes. So this is pretty much like the description of the company in terms of, how the COVID impacted our markets. So as I was saying, we're operating in 8 different markets. So we had to face very different reactions, from governments, but overall we had lockdowns, of population in pretty much all the countries, and restaurants had to close. So we've tried to offer solutions to both the people and the businesses, which is really straightforward, right? People locked down at home need to eat, and they need to order groceries to cook. And they didn't want to go in the street, right? So it consequently triggered a surge in demand, both for food, for restaurants, and for grocery products. And for the restaurants, most of them had to be shut down for the public. So basically, they could only go on operating through delivery. And since most of them don't have their own fleet, we became their primary source of income and distribution channel. So I would say overall, the crisis has impacted in a good way the delivery industry from our perspective, and especially in Latin America. But we had to face many challenges that I think we're going to discuss a bit further.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Clara. And just to make sure I clarify, as you said, you're from France, the company is from Colombia, but you're based in Mexico.
Exactly.
Hussein, over to you.
Thank you, Christos. My name is Hussein Wehbe. I come from the industry. I have around 20 years of experience. I worked in the private and public sector, different companies, and I gained maybe the right experience to allow me to come to Fetcher and to work with a great team. Fetcher, in a nutshell, is one of the first logistics tech startups in the MENA region. It was established in 2012. Fetcher was focusing in the past on solving a lot of last mile delivery problems through leveraging on its technology and providing a tech-enabled ecosystem solution for the region. This is what Fetcher is about in a nutshell. Of course, it's the strategies and the plans moving forward is to go beyond what we are doing now. I'm not going to tell you our strategies. I'll keep this as a surprise, but things gonna be announced very soon.
Great. Thank you so much, Hussein. Santiago, over to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Santiago Pineda. I'm CEO of Mensajeros Urbanos. Mensajeros Urbanos is a last mile logistics solution for multiple industries. We attend restaurants, pharmacies, supermarkets, convenience stores, e-commerce, courier, and different type of services focused only in the logistic part. We are not a marketplace, not like Rappi. We focus only in the logistic. And we operate in Colombia and Mexico. We are a Colombian startup. And with COVID, I believe that we are the few of the companies that can tell that we have a positive impact in the company and in the demand of our services. We have been growing in a 30% pace month over month in Colombia and in Mexico, where we started operations 6 months ago. We are growing in 150% month over month pace. So it's been a huge challenge also. And as Clara told you, there's many things in regulation that gives you more challenges to operate and be able to give the same service that you were doing with less deliveries. But I believe that we have been able to overpass those challenges.
Great. Thank you so much, Santiago. Purnendu?
Hi, Christos. Thank you for having me. Purnendu Shekhar, based out of Mumbai, India. I hail from pretty much transport ecosystem, have been out there 23 years as a sailor, as a captain, with shipping giants like AP Maersk, and then in the logistics. Here, I am founder of cogoport, and cogoport is an international freight marketplace which enables SME to trade globally. And so, unlike last mile, we are pretty much kind of the main leg of transportation, taking the bulk of it. So we support our customers full stack delivery from point A to B, and A and B are pretty much in 2 different continents and countries. At present, we are working for our customers in India and Netherlands, our 2 countries, and slowly expanding to all the other markets. Regarding your question on the impact to local markets, since 24th of March, India is, I think, one of the countries which took lockdown very seriously, and everything was kind of locked down, apart from the essential movements which were running on safety inventory. The rest, every shop, every movement was closed. And now in the past couple of weeks, things have started easing out. Government is gradually allowing certain sectors to start operations, and we are seeing the trade to resume, but still the demand is pretty deep L over here in part of this country, and the chaos at the ports are slowly easing out because a lot of stacked up previous deliveries are now being taken.
Understood. Great. Thank you so much. Over to you, Gaurav.
Hey, Christos. Can you guys hear me well?
Yep, absolutely.
So my name is Gaurav. I'm the founder and CEO of Trukker. We're the largest freight platform in the Middle East and North Africa region. We operate out of UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. From a freight platform, what I mean is we connect demand and supply for trucks for clients like industrial clients and manufacturers who require trucks for domestic cargo movements or international cargo movements within the region. We connect them in the most frictionless possible manner with thousands of trucks. So at the moment, we are about 3.5 years old. We operate 22,000 plus trucks across the Middle East and Egypt, and we service about 300 plus clients. We move everything from metals to paper to FMCG. We operate, all the major ports in the region, moving containerized cargo. So that's our business. In terms of values to a client, we offer a very advanced technology and digital interface, which makes it quite easy for their journey of, procuring, trucking, and, managing their transportation. And to the suppliers, we are an ideal client who pays instantly, who has a very organized manner of dealing with them. And we take away pretty much all their stress about business development, working capital, financing. And so we pretty much tell our suppliers that you focus on doing a good job of driving a truck and maintaining a truck and leave the rest of it to Trucker. So that's in a nutshell about our business. With regards to COVID-19 and the region, I don't think there's been any industry that has been untouched by this, mass shutdown and lockdown of businesses. So there's been huge amount of demand destruction, because of this. We have also had an impact, but luckily, I think, like most of us in logistics, we haven't shut down. Most Trucker offices have been operational, and most of our operational team has been, right in the front lines of servicing our clients throughout the last, 10 to 12 weeks. And I think that's been a great responsibility of the overall logistics industry, like healthcare or any of these, to keep the wheels of supply chain moving for essential cargo. And I think from a perspective of Trucker, I think we really enjoy being in that space where we have been able to operate during this time, and thank everybody in the Trucker team to be able to support that cause.
Great. Thank you so much, Gaurav. So that concludes our sort of introductory remarks. I think what's clear is, first of all, we have a really global set of players on the panel, which is great. We're able to sort of compare things across markets, and some things may be comparable, some things may be different. Also, we have a diversity of types of companies and types of logistics, whether that's last mile or long haul, or road freight, etc., which I think can provide insights into different parts of the vertical. And I think we have sort of varying degrees and types of impacts because of COVID, and so it will be interesting to understand in more detail what that is and what you guys are doing to face these challenges. So now we enter the second round of questions, and here what I wanted to do is kind of go a bit deeper on what are the main challenges and opportunities when it comes to arising from COVID. Specifically, two questions. What has been the impact of COVID on the business specifically? If you can go into a little bit more detail. In some cases, it may be positive, and some may be negative. As way of example, in some cases, last mile delivery has gone up because demand has gone up. Other things that involve perhaps international or cross-border has gone down for whatever reason. So I think it would be interesting to kind of understand the nuances there in terms of what is the impact on your business. So that's sort of the first part of the question. The second thing would be, what have you done? And I think this is really what our audience is quite interested in. What have you done to really weather the storm? Has there been, a freeze in marketing, a freeze in hiring? Have you had layoffs? What are the measures you've taken to kind of, as a first step, weather this storm? And we would love to hear from you. So we'll actually go in the same order for now, at least, until I surprise you later with Clara.
Perfect. No, I think, so we're basically a last mile delivery company, and we had different reactions depending on the vertical, since we're operating on different vertical, but overall we had a huge surge in demand, except in some countries, in Peru, for instance, where we had a total shutdown of operation for a couple of weeks, based on government policies. But overall, in the 8 countries we're operating in, we've seen a huge surge in demand, both from new users, meaning we had a huge organic acquisition of user. We acquired, in the first month of COVID, almost 700,000 new users of the platform, which is, numbers we've been used to in Rappi, but a year ago, and we were having a more stable and 1-digit growth when we take over 2-digit growth as we used to have a year before. So huge organic growth, basically. And second, we had kind of a shift in the order mix, right? Basically, we're operating in different vertical, but the food, the restaurant vertical, was the biggest one we had in terms of volumes. But basically, we had all our current users shift on the grocery vertical. We had a huge boom of orders, 2 or 3 digit percent of growth, week over week. Which is good news. For the business, it's good news, but of course it implied a lot of challenges. From the grocery stores, imagine the first week we had so many out of stocks. So basically in terms of integrations and making sure our user were gonna have good experience, it was really complicated. And I think we kind of manage it because we could evolve the product, we could have more integration with our allies, but overall it was a big challenge and it was a big storm. So I think in terms of, as a summary, I think we took a lot of different measures to actually cope with all the different, the different reality, and to be structured and not talk about this hours, since basically I think a lot of things went on. I would say with the 4 different stakeholders that we have, which are governments, our users, of course, our couriers and shoppers, and our allies, we took different measures. So governments and communities, I think the very challenge was to have like a daily dialogue, to rely on lockdown policies and curfews and alcohol restrictions, you know, from one day to the other. In Mexico, you couldn't deliver alcohol. So it was really like question of adapting. And we've really tried to actually listen to what the government needs in terms of implementing special action for elderly people in Brazil, for instance. That is like a measure that has been suggested by the Brazilian government, where we could give free delivery for people like more than 60-year-old people, and have a dedicated phone number to order groceries without using the app. So it was really new for us. Like, we're basically based our operation the 5 years on developing a super app, and then we're like taking calls to order. So it was a new way of operating. And we implemented huge campaigns basically to deliver food to the hospitals. So we really wanted to contribute to help the community. But overall, we really needed to be really aligned with the governments and the change of policies and lockdowns, which was like kind of daily bumps dialogue. But I think we managed it. For the users, I think the very important thing was to reassure our user regarding all the preventive hygiene measure we've taken. You know, a lot of people were not trusting that ever since you still had, you know, contact between people in kitchens, and, you know, people were scared basically. So we had to tell them about like the contactless delivery we implemented, which was a new flow of delivering food and groceries. That our couriers were wearing masks, and we even implemented a tool where a user could report a rider without a mask. We had to check upon our allies to ensure they were complying with hygiene regulations, and make sure that the user knew that he was ordering from a restaurant where everything was, you know, on track. So it was really important. Communication. In terms of growth, as I was saying, like we grew so much organically that we drastically decreased our marketing investment. And I think it's a huge turning point for us, since, you know, we've been quite aggressive. And I think people who know us, you know, in Latin America are going to say that we're a really, really aggressive growth strategy. And for once, like, we really decreased our marketing investments, and still growing so much since the beginning of the crisis. And the shift of orders basically make it really important to fulfill this kind of new demand, right? So this, of course, had it impacted a lot of couriers and shoppers' operations. So we had to onboard, more than 50,000 new riders weekly. We recruited more than 10,000 shoppers. You had to recruit the guys to train them, which is like, we had to do online trainings. Before we still had trainings in hubs. We had to close the hubs. We really had to be really quick on shifting everything like online, and making sure the guys knew how to do orders. And there's been an enormous amount of, implementation processes with the couriers, right? Like contactless delivery, how the courier are carrying the bag, and how they pick it up from the restaurants, how to leave it to the customers. It had to be very lean in terms of operations, and I think it forced us to evolve in a really contactless end-to-end process that we were not used to, and for sure that's going to change the way we are delivering products, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of allies, just to finish, I think the very mission was to make sure that the restaurants were not going to die, and making sure we're going to help them. So simplify the onboarding of new restaurants. We brought financial support to the allies, posing loan repayment, rent payment for all the dark kitchen that we have, and making sure that we help them grow by helping them put their product online. So I think on the different the four main stakeholders, we really tried to took all the measures to like keep on selling and keep on helping all the different stakeholders.
Great, thank you so much, Clara. Very, very interesting. You know, one thing that's worth noting is that in a time when there has been quote unquote demand evaporation across many, many sectors, in last mile, you basically have a massive jump in demand because of the behaviors and patterns of consumption that have been disrupted by Corona. And then, of course, you know, different companies have different ways to react, but you know, absorbing that demand became a priority in an environment where other sort of sectors or other types of companies did not have much business to do. So on that note, I'll hand it over to Hussein. We'd love to hear your perspective on this topic from Fetcher and from the MENA region.
Yeah, thank you, Christos. I will tell you a bit about Fetcher, and I'm going to talk also in general about the industry, what happened. Luckily, I joined Fetcher a couple of weeks back, and I joined in the middle of the COVID crisis, which I saw as a beautiful opportunity because it's the right time to really look into optimizing your operation, adjusting yourself while moving forward. Definitely, the surge in demand was huge, massive. As Clara was saying, I mean, the increase in the e-commerce business and the B2C is, you cannot imagine the numbers. This caused a big pressure on the capacity in the countries, in the region, not only in the UAE. I mean, UAE, Saudi, and the whole region as well. So if you gather all the capacities that all the courier companies have today, they won't be able to handle what's available to deliver every single day. So as Fetcher, I mean, we had a very strong BCP, which is a business continuity plan in place that allowed the company to navigate safely through the first days of the crisis. Because, you know, we got hit by the crisis suddenly, nobody was prepared. The company had a very strong business continuity plan, which was communicated with the customers externally and internally. This allowed us to align ourselves internally and with our clients to really sail safely throughout this period. And we were able to be on track. When I say on track, I mean, you wake up from that sudden shock that hit everybody within a couple of days. The most important thing that we focused on is we never chew more than what we can digest. And that's a very important factor here that helped us to maintain at least the service levels and the SLAs with our clients without having those hundreds and thousands and hundreds of thousands of backlogs in our warehouses, just because we took shipments, but we couldn't deliver on time. I mean, this has a big impact on the community, on the citizen experience, on the customer experience. We were one of the companies who were able at least to respect the SLAs with the clients. We were going to clients and telling them, you know what, this is our capacity. This is how much we can handle every single day. We will only take that, rather than taking double and triple and then creating a backlog, a bottleneck, and affecting the whole customer experience of our clients. The challenges that we saw in general as an industry, not only as Fetcher, yes, as you said, Christos, the international business went down tremendously because of the disruption in flights, because of the disruption and the airports. I mean, the volumes that used to come for all the companies have dropped tremendously. This affected even your operational efficiency because most of the time, many courier companies, they optimize their operational infrastructure based on huge volumes of international business that allows you, to utilize more and have more deliveries so that your cost can be controlled somehow. Secondly, the demand was much higher than the available capacity, as we mentioned before, which affected the industry as a whole. Another thing is the curfews. I mean, the curfews in this region were very sudden. You notice that you get a notification, and these are very good curfews because the purpose of these curfews was the safety of the community, and we had to deal with these while respecting the government regulations, cooperating and coordinating with the government entities not to disrupt really the ground operations, but to operate within the safety measures that will allow you at least to balance between maintaining the delivery of parcels, supplying people with the essentials that they require within the country limits, and as well to respect the timings where you cannot really move. But this did not really affect us a lot like other industries. You notice that the surge was very big in the food stuff, food deliveries, and in the pharmaceuticals, medicines and pharmacies. We didn't really get into this. We were more focusing on the general cargo. And trust me, we were extremely busy with the normal shipments. I mean, we were operating almost on full capacity. When I say full capacity, I mean, as I said, we take as much as we can handle to maintain the SLA and to maintain the customer experience for our clients. And luckily, our clients were extremely understanding, and they were standing with us in this and allowing us really to pick and choose where we can deliver based on our capacity, strengths, and where we can under promise and over deliver. And this created a bit of an excellent trust, whereby we were with our clients when they wanted us to be with them, and they were with us wherever we wanted to stand with us. So these were the challenges, but I can tell you that opportunities were 10 times more than the challenges. I mean, this gave us resilience. It was a great lesson for the whole Fetcher team in resilience. And I can tell you, look, I'm going to tell you as a newcomer to Fetcher, I haven't seen in my life a resilient team as the team that we have here in this company, especially when it comes to the account management and how we handle clients and how they were close to the customers, transparency, and the feedback of the clients based on the transparency and based on the way we were aligning on daily basis. We have daily calls with our clients. We update them on our situation. They update us on their volumes, the anticipated volumes. And it's very important to have a proper planning with your clients during the crisis, because the client will not really predict, and you cannot predict the number of orders. It's not like before you have a forecast of, let's say, 500 orders a day. During COVID, the 500 became 10,000. So if you don't plan every single day with your client, you will not really able to provide the proper service that will reduce the stress on the consignee or the citizen, because the customer or the citizen who's sitting at home today is already stressed that they cannot go to the mall and buy their essentials. What if even the delivery arm was very weak and it couldn't deliver on time? So this will cause tremendous stress on them. Luckily, the team were very, 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 I mean, they performed very well in this. And this is, I'm very proud of.
Thanks,
so
Hussein.
that's it in a nutshell.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Hussein. You know, very interesting insights. You know, two things. One, I would say the point you made about trust is very interesting, because, you know, at times when certain major retailers or supermarkets were backed up maybe 1 or 2 weeks, the ability to deliver in a reasonable time frame is absolutely key, and builds the trust rather than erodes it. And I think also another thing I want, sorry, please go ahead.
So can I add something? I mean, Fetcher, what helped us really is our technology. Fetcher is having a cutting edge technology, whereby also, you know, we have one of the very advanced scheduling AI systems. Our scheduling for delivery is based on artificial intelligence and machine learning. And this allowed us also to have a big portion of our deliveries to be scheduled through the AI technology, whereby the human intervention was very less. So this expedited as well, sending out shipments rather than having to do these phone calls or verifying addresses. And, you know, we have a beautiful lady called Nancy. She's our bot, a WhatsApp bot. She did a great job in doing that. So technology helped us a lot during the crisis as well, and pushing out more shipments and having a higher success delivery rate rather than having only the manual way of doing things. So because I forgot to mention that.
No, obviously technology is key, and we'll dive into that into more detail. And one thing I think I forgot to mention in the beginning when I was introducing you, and you were too modest in your own intro, Hussein is recent to Fetcher, and you know, Fetcher is lucky to have you. And at the same time, you've been ex-CEO of UPS and before at Aramex. So we get your insights from sort of big giants as well as, you know, the startup part. But now it's time to move over to Santiago and get your perspective. Sorry, you waited a little bit, but now we get your insights. We're very interested to hear what you have to say.
Well, first of all, I think that the future came earlier than what we expected and as company expected. And all the big companies that had a plan to pass through mortar and bricks stores to a digital store that they thought that in 2 or 3 years was enough to prepare for that. They needed to move to do it in only a matter of weeks. And one of the biggest challenge to move to a digital sale is the logistic part. So that's where Mensajeros Urbanos has been a key ally to many kind of industries, especially as Hussein just mentioned. Pharmacy is one of the biggest industry that it's most impacted with all what is happening, especially the surge of demand. It's really, really high. Right now, we in Colombia, we are delivering 60% of our deliveries are from pharmacies. We are delivering not only for normal clients, but also to deliver for elder people and the government. We are delivering their medicines. So it's been a huge challenge. Also, all the food deliveries. And also, we have been supporting a lot of traditional logistic players in the last mile deliveries, because with the increase of the surge of demand, these guys were unable to accomplish the level of service that the clients expected, and we started supporting them on the last miles. And this also had a lot of challenges. One of them, and probably was something similar to what Rappi is facing, is that we are receiving more than 10,000 requests to join our network per week. And when you start joining a lot of drivers to your network, you need also to guarantee the health protocols to protect your drivers and your clients and take care of them. And this is one of probably the biggest challenge that we have as a company. The second one is cash flow. We are a B2B company, so mostly our clients, and I don't know in the rest of the world, but in Latin America, it's really often done that the companies, especially huge companies, pay you in 90 days or 120 days after you give the services. So there's a huge challenge in the cash flow. And especially when you're growing at this pace, you start seeing how fast your cash flow is reducing. So this
welcome to emerging markets.
So it's been a huge challenge to renegotiate a lot of contracts with our clients, especially the big ones. And the third challenge that we have is aligning the employees. For example, in Mexico, as I mentioned before, we started operations 5 months ago. So we only have 4 employees in Mexico. And right now, 15% of our operations is in Mexico with only 4 employees. Well, in Colombia, we have 300 employees. So it's been a huge challenge to be able to grow at this pace and having so few employees in the country, especially in Mexico. And the best way that we have done that is aligning team remotely, having daily or 2 days in the day meetings with them, helping them as most as we can, digitalizing the most process that we can in the company. And that's also one of the biggest learnings in the company, and is that most of the things that we were doing in an office, we are able to do it at home. So that's also a huge learning for us.
Very, very interesting. Thank you so much. I just want to remind everyone to continue sending us your questions to the Q&A function. We will be discussing your questions towards the end of the discussion. So moving on to Purnendu, if you can share with us your perspective on this topic.
Yes, Christos. I think India and Netherlands both pretty much behaved a similar way how Clara and Hussein described over here. So one clear behavior change because of non-availability or because of the situation, okay, was that there was a massive jump on the digital platform for the last mile, and especially in terms of the food and grocery section. Those were essential, how I will put it, essential items. Okay? And so there was also kind of a lot of requests for on our platform that if we want to get into that last mile, but we clearly made our choice that no, we need to kind of stand tall on our choices, what we have made for the international logistics. So we didn't venture out, but I saw here a lot of startups and grown-up players like Amazon taking the massive shift on the platform where the daily orders was peaking up. So the behavior change was absolutely constant in all the market. I think that if you see my crystal ball, then every market, every continent, every region, they have been a little bit relying on the safety inventory. And because the international part has gone missing, more or less, apart from the essential commodities. So we have seen exporting out of essential commodities to Gulf, Africa, but largely on the farm products, vegetables, those pulses, and some of the pharma, which has moved from the air. But apart from that, nobody else has been really getting the order. There's no international orders, and that's just stand true with the China, stand true with the Netherlands, stand true with kind of America. So if you see, there's going to be pretty vacuum as we go ahead once the global lockdown is lifted up, and say generally average inventory people hold is for 4 to 6 months. And now we are already kind of massive part of the world, 3 to 3rd month or 4th month. So there's going to be a immediate lift in the demand. And I think that's when kind of we have to be ready with to support those international transactions. So what we have been doing, considering that whatever is required for the product parity and scaling up for that order, because that is what we can sense on the footfall every day, and that we should be ready to accomplish. So that was the preparation on the as a company level. Obviously, what Santiago mentioned, that we also had for B2B, so essential part was that manage your own cash flow, but at the same time, your customer needs you more than ever to support them on the cash liquidity. So how you do it? Exactly. And that's when we wrapped up our product with finance products, and we quickly launched our pay later feature, where we are trying to help our customers with financial liquidity, because this is a time also where you need to be collaborative and support them all. Then we also need to handle on the team perspective, and there we made quite a conscious choice that we will not talk about a lot about Corona, but rather kind of we sped up our product parity roadmap. So we were kind of quickly we are trying that how many things we can put on production. And now kind of rather than talking about the week, we talk about morning to evening, that what we have pushed out over there and how it's solving someone's pain. So that velocity has tremendously kind of increased. And for our both sides, because we are two-sided marketplace, so for our buyer customers and our seller customers, we have the BCP, how kind of Hussein mentioned. But as a company, we are well prepared to support ourselves, support our customers, and support our team members. But clearly what I'm seeing that it's a market where a significant buying behavior change which has happened and which is going to stick over there. And that's the digital adoption. And because also the uncertainties in the different companies where everybody is now coming on the drawing board that how their organization should look like. That means that job losses, everywhere, wherever you hear there are job losses, there are pay cuts, and that means that all the processes needs to be very optimal, and that can only happen if you are digital ready. So I think that's the one path India, Netherlands, UK, China, everybody is walking on. So.
Thank you so much. Very interesting. I think you brought up two very important points, which I want to highlight. Number one, and not only you, also some of our others panelists previously, but there has been an acceleration in this transition to digital. This has sort of been a hyper movement towards online, and the acceleration has been extremely interesting. I think in the next round of questions we'll discuss whether this is permanent or not, but for sure, we've seen this transition nevertheless very significant. I think number two, in this crisis, what we've seen is a very quick to differentiate between what is necessity and what's not, right? So delivery of food, delivery of medicine, top priority. Other areas, not so much, right? And I think it's very, very interesting how it's impacted. Before I move to Gaurav, I just wanted to tell everyone that there has been a set of questions that have been raised, which you probably have answered already, but just wanted to highlight that. We look forward to your answers there. And I want now to hand over to Gaurav. Gaurav, very quickly, to kind of preface the question. Trukker is a high growth company. You start off in UAE, you moved into Saudi, you moved into Egypt. You went from being a domestic business to very much international and transitioned from B2C to B2B. How what is your sort of perspective on the topic in terms of the impact of COVID and what you've done to sort of manage the situation?
Sure. So Christoph, I think it has been a very interesting last 2-3 months, and I think from a trucker perspective, we've seen very different dynamics in different regions. For example, Egypt has behaved in a very different manner to UAE or Saudi Arabia, or our international long-haul trucking, from crossing borders has behaved differently to domestic, port movements versus, when we do last mile delivery of big and bulky products. So I'll try and give a bit of a, taste of each of these. I think from a challenge perspective, I think there was definitely an element of surprise in the market, towards the end of March. Luckily, Trucker was a bit more prepared. I think we were in communication with our peers in China, in India, the likes of Black Buck and the Full Truck Alliance in China. So we were aware that how these companies were being hit. So I think we were, as a Middle East, I think we were a quarter behind to Far East in terms of the impact of the virus and the resultant lockdown and the measures that were taken by the governments to prevent the spread. So I think March was pretty much for everybody. We were seeing our FMCG clients, our construction product clients were all peaking. Life was as normal. Some of them were like seeing a surge in demand, like paper companies. I know Carrefour was running out of paper rolls in March, where people thought that for some reason paper was in high demand. And we service like 4 or 5 large paper manufacturers in the region, and they were going through huge demands. But we were at some point, I think, staying on the international market, we were aware that this, movement is going to have impacts because of regulatory, constraints of the borders closing down. And that is what happened. I think towards the middle of April, the borders shut down between UAE and Saudi and Bahrain. And a lot of these cargo, other than essential products, were not moving. I think the way Trucker, I would say, we used our understanding and knowledge of what is happening in other parts of the world to be a better informed supplier to your clients. I think we started engaging with our clients in March. I know between me and the country manager in UAE and the country manager in Egypt and Saudi Arabia, I think we reached out to a few hundred clients on half-an-hour Zoom calls just to understand what do they think is their challenge. So we engage with general managers, head of logistics, to understand what do they expect out of us as suppliers when eventually the borders might shut down. So I think that built a huge kind of trust, where we were not one amongst many suppliers, but became one of those who really cared about the business. I think probably conversations around payments, payment terms, and all of those started happening towards end of April and May, when we were like, hey, we also need to get paid. But I think March and early April was much more about, hey, how do we jointly, weather this storm that is about to come? And I think domestically, I think, for example, our Saudi domestic business continued to grow. I think we are slightly different from e-commerce, where we're not really waiting, or we're not really a result of a behavioral change that is happening towards more, digital consumption of products versus going to a store. We're into hardcore traditional trucking. We are more, our industry is really large. I think growth is pretty much, we can continue to grow at the rate that we are growing for another 10 years and still be a very small chunk of the industry. It's a huge, industry that we are in. So we were not so much challenged about, negative growth. I think we knew that it is a function of shutdowns. The other challenge that I want to highlight is your suppliers. We did see a lot of truck drivers who were worried about their health. These guys are pretty much at the bottom of the pyramid. They don't, I think Santiago touched on this point briefly, and I think so did Clara, about, the anxiety about suppliers. So we did spend a lot of time within our teams. Trucker sent out memos to within the company telling people, don't, rely on WhatsApp forwards, don't rely on what you read on Facebook, go to, Economist or Bloomberg, who all have a free section about the coverage. Don't panic about that this is going to spread by touching somebody. So those kind of things, I think we educated our people, and who in turn went and continued to educate a lot of our suppliers that, yes, you need to wash your hands probably 15 times a day, but this does not mean that if you're driving a truck and meeting another guy and keeping distance, that doesn't mean you're going to fall sick. So a lot of that was being addressed. I also want to touch about opportunities. I think Trucker sees this to be, an extremely, unique opportunity where we have potential to consolidate a large part of our market. Trucking is very fragmented, not just the supply, but also the brokerage. We've seen a lot of small and medium-sized brokers either disappear or go into hibernation. And these are the exact guys who we want to compete against and have a much better value proposition for our clients. We've seen during this crisis, because of either not being able to financially sustain or other reasons of that come because of lack of scale, I think a lot of these brokers either disappeared or they stopped servicing their clients. We have had the highest rate of new client signups in the month of April and May. And kudos to the Trucker team across UAE, Saudi, and Egypt that they continued that hustle. Our sales continued that hustle. Our senior guys continue to reach out to more new clients. And these are big names. Like we signed up people like Coca-Cola and the biggest water company when people were not working in office. These companies typically take like 10 meetings before they give you their business. And we converted these clients on Zoom calls. So I think this is a unique opportunity for businesses like ours to reinforce our position in the market, huge reputation building opportunity. Now a few of the technicals around how Trucker saw this challenge, like borders shut down. The Saudi UAE border, extremely busy border, 1,500 trucks cross that border every day. We were the only company that is working with the Saudi customs and the UAE customs in a cross-loading facility that became live. People in my UAE and Saudi team have to take the credit for this. They coordinated on both sides of the border, where we were moving Saudi trucks to the border and UAE trucks to the border. They were cross-loading the cargo and staying within their countries. We were the first company to come up with this solution and continue to help the customs on both sides to pilot these kind of solutions. So I think this was another huge reputation building exercise with our clients, where their suppliers were saying, sorry, we can't do anything until the market changes or the borders open up. Trucker was like, hey, listen, there is an option. And if you are sitting on time sensitive cargo, this is the way that we have a solution to move this. So there are a bunch of these things. I would also highlight something that Purnendu said, digitization. We offer one of the most advanced digital interfaces to our clients, where they can reduce significantly on operating expenses for procuring trucks, managing trucks. You can't believe how many people some of the big companies employ just to call the driver and find out where the truck is. We automate all of this, and this sales pitch has never been more powerful than now. We are now seeing where clients have this pressure of, yeah, man, we've had clients who would want printed invoices with lots of paper attached to that, are now accepting, electronic waybills, where invoices are now getting PDF. And we've been pitching this for a few years now. So that adaptation of digitization and the pressure on, bottom lines for a lot of these companies who were earlier probably not as sensitive to transportation costs, I think that is a huge opportunity for startups which are powered by technology like us to make more and more, inwards into capturing those kind of market share.
Cool. No, very, very interesting, Gaurav. Thank you so much. I've noted 4 key points I want to highlight from the things you said, which I think are important for us to sort of include in our takeaway. So, taking care of your stakeholders, very, very important. And stakeholders includes your employees, includes your customers, includes, all the touch points, internally and externally. Number 2, the importance of information flow. That is so important when it comes to building the trust with the customer, building the trust with the employees, but also really maintaining the level of safety. So, in Trucker's case, having that information flow with the drivers, and of course, equivalent to all your business, is very, very important. Number 3, and that's a more of a general sort of takeaway. And I think if we were to take this panel and then put it next to the mobility panel, you would have 2 very, very different discussions, because what we've learned from COVID so far, if we oversimplify the universe, is movement of people, tough. Movement of goods, it's manageable for now. And then the last, the 4th point I wanted to sort of highlight, and from what Gaurav said, is having innovative solutions is key, right? So shutting down of, let's say, of any border is a problem. So, but if you're able to find, innovative solutions, work with the regulators, work with the customs, having this, I think, Gaurav, this cross-border, cross-loading thing will be a highlight in your Q2 report, I'm sure. Switching gears now to the last round of questions. I want to do this a little bit differently. I have two sets of questions for you, but I would like to kind of keep them very crisp and short. So each question, if you guys can sort of take a maximum 1 or 2 minutes each, because otherwise we'll run out of time, and I do want to squeeze in these two sets of questions. So my questions are, in the first sort of batch is, is this change permanent? And how will your model change, if at all? And let's focus on that for now, so I don't want to confuse it with the second part. So Clara, do you want to take a stab at it? But we're keeping very quick response.
1 minute, I promise. I'm gonna get in short. No, I hope. I mean, of course, I hope like the situation is gonna be better for all the people and all this. But like for Rappi, of course, I hope all the user we've acquired and all the user we've converted to a new vertical, groceries, for instance, are gonna stay. It's gonna be challenging since we've acquired them in a very tough time in terms of operations. But I think it's gonna be the very focus is going to be product and operations to do this, right? Because now we have new customers, we have new restaurants, we have new couriers, but we really need to make sure that we have a strong product, basically to make it sustainable and to make sure that the guy we converted in a really complicated time are going to stay with us. So I think this is what we're going to focus on. And are we going to change our business model? No, for sure not. I think we've always been this multi-vertical platform, and this has been our strength during the crisis. But we're definitely going to have to improve our product for the grocery vertical that is like the most challenging one in terms of delivery. So really high level summary. I hope it's going to last. It really depends on us to make sure it's going to be sustainable, and the very focus is going to be product, and operations.
Got it. Okay. Very interesting. Hussein.
Well, Christos, the impact is here to stay. I mean, maybe the impact is going to be a bit less in the coming months, but the damage, maybe the positive damage, already happened. The world has changed. The industry has changed. A lot of people woke up really from the comfort zone. It took a lot of companies who were still in the analog phase to digitize and to transform very quickly in a very rapid situation. From our side as Thatcher, I mean, all we can do is to continue the momentum of upgrading our technologies regularly. We need to keep improving the efficiencies, building capacities. It's very important. We need to go into more strategic collaborations. I mean, it's going to be more of strategic collaborations rather than having these head-to-head competitions that drain energies, and in the end, all of us will lose and the customers will lose. So it's better to collaborate, explore synergies with different partners across the region, across the world. Plus, very importantly, focusing on customer experience and being customer obsessed, because I can tell you, customer experience was before COVID-19. You need to survive after COVID. You have to be customer obsessed, which means you have to put a lot of effort here to work on the end-to-end experience for the client to make sure that you have an advantage ahead of everybody else. Innovation is extremely important. It's time for us to innovate, come up with creative solutions that will cater for the after COVID scenario. Because every strategy, any company, from a $100 billion company to a $1 company, any strategy that was put as a long-term strategy before COVID-19 is obsolete. They have to relook and rebuild their strategies on a short and mid-term strategies that will allow these companies to navigate across the obstacles that will come, because we are expecting a bit of tough days, but very opportunistic days, where again, we can adjust ourselves to capture opportunities and to build the infrastructure for the new world or the 2.0 version of the world. And this requires a lot of efforts, cooperation, innovation, creativity in the way we operate, and of course, efficiency.
Great. Thank you, Hussein. Santiago?
Yes, as I mentioned before, I believe this is going to stay. The tendency that we had in the last years moving, the companies moving to online presence and digitalization has been increasing, and COVID what has done is to move faster this tendency and have a more digitalized world and companies. And regarding the model, I believe that for us, as I have heard most of you, I believe this COVID has strengthened our model. But yes, we need to continue innovating and continue also. We are technology companies, but we need to also digitalize a lot of our processes, be more efficient in our processes. And that's what it's the difference between a company that can take advantage of this opportunity, as Hussein just mentioned, or not.
Got it. Purnendu?
Yeah, so some of the changes will be permanent in nature. There's no doubt about that. But I think it's still too premature to say that what will become a habit, because generally, and why I'm saying that, because the world has not seen the clear demand pattern yet. And typically, international trade, I have seen last 20 years, that's the first barometer of the economy. And we started seeing before this depression, what people are talking about, and it's still kind of, I can't see the demand, which is giving the signal. So initial momentum, yes, a lot of people, the survivors will have to learn to do things with less money, and less money is a function of less human and less time. So obviously the optimization, automation, and then everything we put under the digital umbrella. So digitization will take a faster spread. But let's talk about the fact that how many companies are ready for the digitization we're talking about. It's not the one word that, okay, tomorrow you can just jump and change your processes. So there will be casualties over there. But I think this learning that to remain yourself agile and do the things fast, that will be talked about in every boardroom and every company for the growth. So that's going to there to stay. But now how the current boom to some, say, for example, the selected to us, correct, and how far we can carry it, the digital player, that will depend on our product differentiation and the niche what we carry, because a lot of people will kind of try and adopt. And unless if the consumption doesn't go up, then you will see that this economy will become like a W, correct? So this momentum will go up and then it will start falling it down, correct? Because the world is hinging on the consumption. And I don't think that these bailout packages recently will drive the consumption. So fundamentally, the product prices and the perceived value of the price has to come down, and then the buoyancy will continue to have this behavior change that will be sustainable. Otherwise, there will be a lot of experimentation, and people will be talking about survival, and this entire want economy will shift to need economy, which is a very different world we are talking about then. So I think a little bit premature, but a lot of behaviors will continue to depict in the same way as we are seeing in lockdown.
Yeah. No, interesting, actually. I mean, people ask, right, like if we were, let's say an economy is 90% offline, 10% online in terms of commerce and retail, and now we've gone to this opposite, like 90-10, indicatively. Will we stay at 90-10? Probably not. It'll probably come somewhere in the middle, maybe more towards digital. But there's nuances there as well, right? So there is, I think the movement from, at least in the Middle East, from my knowledge, movement from cash on delivery to credit cards has been immense.
Yeah.
The other thing is, the demand for contactless payments also has been immense. So these are things that may be permanent, but for sure also the digital transition has been immense.
Christos, just let me comment on the cash on delivery. Maybe clients do not know this. The less you have cash on delivery shipments, the better your delivery performance is going to be. Because a prepaid shipment is very easy to deliver. So your delivery ratio can go up to the late 90s, if not 99% for prepaid shipments, whereby if CODs are there, this will go down. Not because of you're not performing well as a company, because of the challenge of CODs, customer is not available, no cash, no change, all these challenges. So COD is evaporating, if I'm allowed to say this, in the region. We don't know yet, especially in Saudi now. In Saudi Arabia, it has stopped now because of safety situations. However, will it come back? we are all observing carefully to see if it will come back or not. However, if it doesn't come back or it comes back, we have to be ready to live with or without it, and to benefit maybe from the opportunity of increasing the delivery performance if COD doesn't come back.
Yeah. No, this migration away from cash and delivery is immense. I mean, we can talk hours for this, but thank you. It's good to have the insights. Gaurav, unfortunately, you have 1 minute, but let's make it count.
Sure. So I think the impact is going to be, there is definitely a negative globalization kind of a thing that's going to happen. That's for sure. I think more and more countries are going to go towards, trying to find at least producing essential products, food, more locally. I think that's definitely a very high level macro impact that governments probably would be looking at as the impact of this crisis. The other thing which I feel is all the downturn and the amount of wealth destruction that has happened over the last 2-3 months. I think it's not going to be that we open up and suddenly things will be back to normal. So we all need to prepare and brace for a slow recovery. I think all of us in logistics, I think we are lucky that we might probably see a more of a V-shaped recovery, but a lot of our clients and a lot of our other industries might definitely have a more of a U or a W kind of recovery. So I think wish everybody the best. I think most of the other speakers have discussed about the importance of technology, importance of Hussein spoke very highly about customer interaction and managing your customer at these times. I think those things are all very valid comments. I don't have anything else to add on those things.
Thank you so much, Gaurav. So I'm going to condense my last question to the bare minimum. It's going to have to be maybe 1 or 2 words from each person, in any order you want, because we must move on to the Q&A. So, fundraising, easier, harder, or impossible? Whoever wants to go first.
Well, I've been
One
going
word,
last. If you want, I can. Easier.
Easier. Okay.
Harder.
Look, after the opportunities that the investors are seeing in this industry, which is the fastest growing industry on earth, it should be easier.
Yeah,
they have to have the trust to put the cash where they have to put it, and it is in this industry.
Yep.
I mean, I have a bias, obviously, since we've always been
How
really
come she
good
gets
at.
to say so many words?
Sorry?
Easier.
Yeah.
The potential we've seen, easier.
Perfect. Purnendu?
Easier for the sustainable business.
So I'm going to summarize it. I'm going to summarize it very quickly, but I'm going to add my perspective. I think easier for certain sectors, last mile and logistics being one of them. Easier with savvy investors, harder for risk-averse investors, so people are not there for the long haul. I think those are sort of some key takeaways. Plus, there's other nuances. We have, at least in our part of the world, some new types of investors beyond venture equity. We have venture debt and etc., which are key. But we cannot go there because now we're out of time. So we're switching gears to the Q&A. We actually have some great questions. So what we'll do here is I'll throw out the questions. We'll have maybe 1 or 2 people answer each one, so we can sort of get as many questions as we can answered. So let's see here. So question for last mile delivery players. Which areas in customer experience during delivery journey needs to be improved and how? So 1 or 2 of the last mile players, if you want to jump on that. The question is, which area of customer experience needs to be improved?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I started
Ladies first.
All right.
That's a tradition.
Now it's the 2 main things basically. So I would very focus on, the grocery vertical, where basically the stock out is the main issues, and I think it's what is bringing the worst, experience for the user. So basically, we have a huge dedicated team, towards the product features for stock out and making sure that we have a contactless order from end to end. Meaning, for me, a really successful order, like a perfect order, is basically the user is ordering, is forgetting about it, and 30 minutes later the order is on their doorstep. So basically having a flawless order, a contactless order, both with the personal shoppers or the couriers. So stock out, I think, is going to be like the biggest priority. And then with customer support, I do think like we need to automate all the different interactions. We're seeing that we still have a lot of interaction with you know, between the user and customer support for things that should be 100% automated, like change of delivery, change of cash, of payments, like a lot of different little things that basically make it a pain. And we should have like 100% contactless order. So I would say, as a summary, stock out and contactless experience for the user on the grocery vertical, and no contact whatsoever with customer support. It should be the very baseline.
Thank you so much, Clara. Hussein, you wanted to answer?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to answer from a different perspective about, and specific about how we can improve the customer experience at the last mile, because you will always have challenges. I mean, nobody is perfect. Out of 10 deliveries, you will have 2 which can go wrong. 2 things here. I think the better the technology is, the less the human error will be there, because, you know, most of the errors are because of human errors rather than general errors. When you have a proper technology that will govern the whole last mile process without even calling the client or disturbing the client, this will improve a lot. Secondly, when things go wrong, it's extremely important to go back to the customer, especially during these tough days, and tell them, sorry, we couldn't deliver, or we are not coming on time. Don't wait for us, and we'll deliver tomorrow. This is very rare in the industry, because sometimes any company across the board, when we fail in a delivery, the client will stay waiting, and then they will raise a complaint, and then the frustration will increase. I mean, whenever we are failing for any reason, be transparent with the client, coordinate on a new delivery time, and everything is okay. This is a big challenge in the whole industry. I mean, you have per day hundreds of thousands of deliveries locally in every country. Imagine what's the success ratio here. If a 2 or 3% fail for any reason, imagine how many people are frustrated. So this is extremely important, which I believe should be really focused on, to make sure that that last mile experience doesn't really spoil the overall customer experience that started from the merchant itself.
Thank you so much. Next question, with the enormous increases in demand, how do you ensure that you have enough drivers for last mile deliveries? So when you have the spikes in demand,
yes.
This can, of
the
course,
best way here to
take the question.
The best way here, Christos, is first of all, based on the planning, you will understand what capacity you need for the coming 6 months. However, going into a hybrid model is very important. I mean, being a heavy asset, and then you get stuck when you have spikes, it doesn't work. It's better to have a hybrid model whereby you will have your own drivers, and also you will have an outsourced model that will give you extra capacity to scale up whenever clients want to give you more business. Because it doesn't make sense to go to a client and tell them, don't sell more, don't do a promotion, we cannot serve you more than this amount of shipments. Always have a plan B of outsourced trusted partners, bring them on board, and let them take the overflow that comes, let them handle the spikes within, of course, your service KPIs and SLAs. And I think you should be fine, because if you keep recruiting drivers and bringing cars and motorbikes, and then you reach a situation whereby there's no more volumes, this will be an extra asset that you will not be able to handle during the tight cash situations.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would just add something here. I think like you need a process of fulfillment which needs to be like both proactive and reactive. So to have a good fulfillment process, making sure the supply is going to meet the demand, basically you're going to have to be really good in terms of forecasts and have like intraday, every hour forecast. So this is something that we're creating like a really like a machine learning model that could learn on, I mean, how it's going to involve your demands in the next hour. And then you have to have a really strong supply reactive fulfillment process, meaning when you're saying your saturation threshold is looking bad or is going to look bad in an hour, to have this really immediate way of, you know, connecting more drivers by like organically or sending incentives like connect right now, you're going to have a lot of orders. I think something that is super important is at the end of the day, we don't want to have too many drivers. Why? Because we really want to have like our guys that are right now in the streets, have a good productivity, receiving a high number of orders and making money out of it. So you don't want to plan for like a really high supply and have like really good service level in your goods. So I think you really need to be good at forecasting the right supply that you're gonna need to optimize the productivity of your drivers, and then have a really strong reactive fulfillment process in place.
Interesting. I feel like we need to give some airtime to Santiago on this front, right? You've attempted a few times to jump in.
Yeah, I believe that models like Rappi and Mensajeros Urbanos, where your drivers are completely independent, it's kind of easier to be able to have enough supply to attend the demand. But and I believe that this is the best part of this model, is that we are also helping a lot of people that it's getting our layoffs and people that have no more work. Most of them have found in platforms like Mensajeros and Rappi a way to increase their incomes, and I believe that's also a very important part of these kind of models.
Cool. Understood. Moving on to the next question. Maybe this one is good for Gaurav. In terms of opening up new markets, new countries, how hard or easy is it? And how important is it to engage with government agencies, etc.?
To be honest, for us, we've taken an approach of having either one of these two things to determine which country we expand into. Either we follow the cargo, that that is a country where we are already moving cargo into from one of the other countries that we operate in, or there is a significant domestic demand and we have a product that is pretty easy to cater to that demand. So example, say Egypt. So Egypt is a country where we saw, for us, Egypt is as important as Saudi Arabia from a demand perspective. And we saw that, the dynamics of that market are somehow more challenging, but we do have, products that can fit into servicing that market. I think once you get to, understanding, figuring out why you want to get into a country, like logistics is not Facebook or Twitter or let's say with Facebook, that you don't really need to have a global product that your friends from Canada to New Zealand are all, on one platform. It's very much more of a solution that you're building for the region that you're building. So if you can figure out, I think, then everything about the regulatory aspects of, the licensing and all of that, just make sure that you hire a good lawyer, test it out that, he has a right reputation, to get a good legal firm to come and help you for it.
Thanks, Gaurav. Someone, Purnendu, you want to take this one as well?
Yeah. So what I have seen from the experience, that obviously, I think what Gaurav mentioned, that get a good law firm and they guide you with everything, or taxation. But I believe that in last 2 years, what I've seen, many countries and government have become very active and very welcoming when you are opening your business in that country. And with that, in a one day, the wealth of information and compliance and everything what you can get through those offices, I think lawyers will charge you several $1,000s for that. So my advice would be that it's wise to connect with those investment offices. They are very friendly these days, and they give you all the comprehensive information on making yourself available in those markets.
Biswas, by the way, I'm not in a position to tell you to answer this. You know why exactly. Later on, hopefully, everything will be clear. But it's extremely exciting to think about the opportunities now of scaling up internationally into all these new countries where we don't exist in a disruptive manner. I mean, the best thing ever is to go into any country whereby you can bring in something that's not available there, disrupt the whole industry positively, create more jobs, create more opportunities, create better service for the communities there. This is where I see the opportunity during these days. I mean, if you are a traditional company doing the traditional service, a traditional thing, not like us who are more agile, I mean, and our size, exactly, tech-enabled, and the mindset as well, we can do a lot on the ground. We can do a lot and in a much lighter mode, and the impact is going to be hopefully huge.
And be more agile and be able to scale quickly because of the technology. Absolutely.
And
integrating. I want to add something here. I think given, a lot of us are already doing big numbers and servicing hundreds and thousands of clients, I think one shift that I expect in the investment side of things, I think overall risk appetite might reduce, which might actually, I think logistics is one of those resilient sectors which probably is going to benefit out of, more investments coming into it. But I think even within the sector, I think more established companies with a, proven product and a track record, I think they will find it easier to raise money to expand globally or expand, into new countries rather than a regional smaller player getting funding to do the same thing or similar thing in that economy. I think that's another thing I think which is going to support. I don't know where Hussein is going next, but I think there'll be
soon we'll talk about it.
It's confidential.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
But yeah, there'll be more. I think there'll be more investor support also. For disrupting technologies.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're actually over time, but I'm going to squeeze in this last question. You guys need to answer it in less than 20 seconds, basically. And I think just to make you feel better about this is it's a tough question, but the rest of the question will be answered by the VC panel tomorrow. So, do you think startups in this vertical will go out of business, and do you see consolidation opportunities? Just a quick phrase from each of you, and we'll wrap up on that. Who want to go first?
Quite many, Christos, quite many. And already I can tell you that because I'm in the middle of 2 such deals trying to evaluate for cogoport. So I do see that many happening and happening faster with the high velocity.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Startups who are not innovating will go out of business. They need to keep innovating to stay alive and move forward. That's the key.
I think anybody who's not in the hospital healthcare business is all those industries. I think will have a significant amount of people going out of business. So there's no doubt about that. I think for people to survive, I think the ones who continue to innovate and stay ahead of the curve, address their customer challenges, in the fastest possible manner, I think they will thrive, and I think the rest will. And from a consolidation question point of view, I think consolidation will only make sense if there is a product advantage or if there's a balance sheet function. But I don't think just because everybody's facing a challenge, so let's get together and face the challenge together. I don't think that's going to make a lot of sense.
Yeah, agreed. Clara, you want to?
Yeah, we just say something really quickly. I mean, we all know that the last mile delivery business model is only profitable when we have strong monopolies or duopolies and not a fragmented market as it is today. So eventually it's all going to be about integrations and have strong monopolies and duopolies for last mile delivery. And we already seen this in the US, and it's happening right now. And I do think the integration model is not going to apply. For Rappi, we're already a super app. So I think the integration, we've done it building the product itself as an integrator. But I think for most of our competitors, and you're already seeing movements in the markets, they are integrating with other vertical company to basically come up with a product that is more of a super app business model than a really niche business model.
Santiago, last words. Last famous words.
My thoughts are really similar to Gaurav. At the end, there are going to be a lot of opportunities to consolidate, but you have to be very careful to decide if you are going to do it or not, because at the end, it depends a lot on the stage of the company, also if it adds value to the company, and probably you can to merge a company, it's really complex. So probably this is the time to be more flexible and more faster than doing a consolidation.
The last word: disrupt before somebody comes and disrupts you. That's the message here. Either you disrupt or you get disrupted. Simple.
Agreed. And I would just to sort of summarize there also. The last point is M&A. So much.
We lost it. We lost it the last
M&A will not.
Christos.
I said the stronger players will go for shopping, others not so much. But M&A is not the solution necessarily. There has to be the right kind of synergy. So,
Okay, it looks like we might have lost Christos.
thank you so much. This was a fantastic panel. Really enjoyed. I'm here. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
You're breaking off.
No worries. So thank you so much. I'll hand over to Camilo.
Thank you, Christos. Thanks to all of the panelists, and thank you for everyone. Thank you everyone in attendance for your time and attention. Please join us tomorrow at the same time for a panel on logistics, but focused on BC players from all over the world. Thank you very much, and have a good day, good morning, good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.